Can I ask one question? How much time do you have for that? I know you'll tell us 30 seconds. What's the total time?
So you're going to have 2 minutes per question, except for a couple of questions will be 1 minute and one will be 3. So, but I will tell you as we go.
Gotcha.
All right. Mayor Keller, the hiring committee in this room has many concerns about the current state of the city of Albuquerque. We are looking for the person who is best qualified to represent us as mayor. You will have 2 minutes per question unless otherwise noted. You will be signaled when there are 30 seconds to conclude your response. First question. Tell us why you want the job of Albuquerque mayor.
Well, for me, this question is very straightforward. It was about 4 years ago when the voters trusted me to try and tackle our biggest challenges head on. And I believe that we have honored that commitment by facing the magnitude and depth of those challenges with resolve and dedication. And we've honored the difficulty of those by trying to really address the root causes and not just try small pilot programs here and there that won't actually make a difference. Now, of course, during that process of addressing those issues, whether it's crime, homelessness, or our economy, we had the pandemic, as was outlined in the introduction. And for me, I'm running again because I want to lead our recovery out of that pandemic. And I believe after what I've been through, the ultimate leadership challenge in the city of Albuquerque over the last year, that makes me singularly qualified to lead us out and into recovery. And I'll explain a couple of reasons why. First is because we have been building a police department. We have been adding 100 new officers every year. We have been doing the kinds of things that we need to do to make that department work better. That includes investments in technology. It includes supporting our officers. We've also been making the investments we need to make in the homeless situation. Taking our taxpayer money with voter approval and spending $14 million on our gateway shelter is going to be the single biggest investment in addiction and homelessness in our city's history. I need to see that through for the next 4 years. And on top of that, I've announced 6,000 new jobs coming to the Albuquerque area. And I want to make sure they end up getting here and they end up hiring our kids and our families so that we can have truly a better city for all of us. That's why I need another 4 years to make sure those things actually happen.
Thank you. The city has invested millions of dollars into buildings and other measures to address the homeless. Yet the number of tents and other homeless camps has not only grown in the downtown area, but now extends to all parts of the city. What is your plan to reduce the homeless population in Albuquerque?
So the homeless challenge, I remember when I first got this job, and I used to drive by, when I was running for this, when I was at this forum last time, and I would drive by Coronado Park, and I would see it filled with homeless folks and encampments. And what we have seen all across the country is an explosion in homelessness. And now coming out of the pandemic, it's even worse. And I know none of us have been allowed to travel, but if you did manage to get out of town, there are cities all around us that are even in much worse shape. So what we've done is a couple of things. Number one, during the pandemic, we housed hundreds of people in empty hotels, and we kept them off the street, and we tried to get them help. That alone was something very few cities could pull off. That alone, I believe, is a reflection of leadership. Number two, we kept the shelter on the west side open for the first time in its history, 24/7, every day of the week. We should have been doing that all along. There again, taking hundreds of people off the streets and trying to get them help. But it's still not enough. We have about 5,000 homeless people in our community. And I will tell you, we have to deal with them in chunks of 100. And that's why we purchased the Gibson Medical Center. Now you mentioned buildings and things like that, but when people are literally living on the street, you have to find a way and a place to put them. And so the idea behind the Gateway Center, the old Loveless, is that folks will actually go there and then we'll sort them out and get them the help they need. Maybe it's job training. Maybe it's addiction treatment. Maybe it's actually just a housing voucher so they can get in housing. That's the fastest and most efficient way to deal with homelessness. But we have to have somewhere for them to go besides our streets. And that's why we've got to push forward on that Gateway Center. And that's why I'm going to do it. I know those neighborhoods don't want it there, but we as a city, I have to lead the city as a whole. And the city as a whole needs that thing up and running as soon as possible. And that's what I'll do if we're reelected.
Thank you. The city and the Albuquerque Police Department have been working under a federal court-approved settlement, a consent decree, with the Department of Justice since 2014. The city has spent millions of dollars per year on reforms. Morale and staffing at APD are at an all-time low, and the city is no closer to the dismissal of the case than it was 7 years ago. Should APD be placed in receivership of the federal court, or do you have a plan for removal of the consent decree?
This is a great question, and I want to begin by saying that we are definitely in a better place than we were 7 years ago. So I think that is unequivocally clear in that we have less officer-involved shootings, we have less all sorts of situations of challenges in APD, which is why they came here. So I just want to say that, at least in my opinion, that is definitely not true. And the courts also say that in their briefing. Now here's the issue. If anyone tells you that you can just get rid of the DOJ without actually doing the work, they are misleading you. We have to actually honor what the DOJ is. It is run by a federal judge, and there is no mayor, there is no police chief who is going to tell that federal judge to do something different than they want to do. So I believe we have two choices in Albuquerque. We can keep not leaning into those reforms, and we can stall, and different maneuvers can occur such that the real change doesn't happen. That means they're going to be here for decades. The fastest way to get rid of the DOJ is to actually do the work they're telling us to do. And there is no shortcut to that. So what my plan is to do those reforms as best and as fast as we can so that we can get back control of our department. And no, I will never support receivership for our department. I believe as a city, any city in America, any mayor should oppose literally giving up their police department. And so I'll continue to disagree with that because local control of the police department is fundamentally American, and I will fight for that.
Thank you. Now we're going to do a lightning round with 2 questions, 1 minute each. We'd like you to start your answer with either support or oppose, and then tell us why. The first one, do you support or oppose city ordinances that mandate business requirements such as minimum wage, personnel scheduling, and mandated sick leave?
Well, I understand we're supposed to say support or oppose, but you asked like multiple questions in one. So, I would tell you that I have vetoed the gas tax. I have also supported raising taxes to fund police officers. So I think it would be disingenuous for me to give you a one-word answer. What I will give you a clear answer to is a specific proposal.
Well, what we're talking about in general is business mandates.
Well, look, again, I think part of being a leader is not making promises you can't keep, and it depends on the mandate.
Thank you. Do you support or oppose sanctuary status for the city of Albuquerque?
So I support immigrant-friendly status, and I have for 12 years. You've all heard that before. I believe that makes our community safer because we need our immigrants to be able to work with our police officers. And I also believe that we were all immigrants and we're not disenfranchised by cities when our families came in, and we need to honor that for the next generation.
Thank you. The number of homicides this year is set to eclipse previous records. Property crimes, other violent crimes, speeding, racing, and crime in general have left many residents feeling unsafe. How will you make Albuquerque safer?
We have invested in my administration, and I believe this is what a mayor should be doing. My job is to hire the brass over at APD, and my job is to provide them with the resources they need to fight crime. And we have now put in $30+ million in technology that should have been put in 10 years ago. Shot spotter gunshot detection, radios that actually allow us to talk to other police departments. It also means the connectivity of those things so we can actually have a real-time crime center to watch properties where there's burglaries and break-ins. And I think the good news is while I will absolutely know and understand that violent crime is up, property crime is down in the city of Albuquerque, so is auto theft. And I believe that's because of the work that the department has done and the resources and the leadership that I've put in place.
Okay. This question you will have 3 minutes to answer. When you ran for mayor in 2017, you said you would not raise taxes without voter approval. But in March of 2018, you signed a 3/8% gross receipts tax increase that took effect in July of that year without voter approval. Please tell us what led to your decision to approve that tax and why voters should trust that what you say while campaigning will hold true if you are elected.
Well, I think I did mention this earlier, and so I'm glad there's a follow-up question. You know, I think it is important for leaders in our city or in any position to understand that you do the best you can with the knowledge you have at the time. And if I had known the situation at APD when I was on the campaign trail, I would have not made that commitment. What I learned when I walked in the door is that we were $40 million short on our budget. That's the shortage. On top of that, I learned that the police department was all going to go to other departments because other departments were actually paying more money. I also learned there was going to be a mass exodus because of retirements. So I was faced with a choice. Do I break a campaign promise, or do I literally keep the city together? If I did not raise your taxes, especially during the pandemic, our city would be crumbling like cities on the West Coast. That, I believe, was one of the most courageous and one of the most leadership-oriented decisions I made, because I know it means none of you might vote for me. I know it means my opponents, whoever they are, might say, you know, he broke his campaign promise. That's the difference between a politician and a leader. That was the right thing to do, and I'm grateful that I had the courage to do it, and I think our city is in a much better place because of it. Now that said, it's not something I want to do again, which is why I don't believe in making promises until you have all the information. And that's just another way of explaining why I didn't give you one-word answers to those previous questions.
Thank you. So the next two questions are back to 2 minutes each. Economic development and quality jobs are a top concern. Please tell the hiring committee if you favor private-public partnerships or taxpayer-funded government programs to spur economic development and why.
I think economic development is one of the issues that has really been overshadowed by whether it was the pandemic or whether it was the crime issues that we have. And I will tell you what our city has done is led through partnership. Even if you look at examples like the Orion project, which is slated to bring 2,000 small satellite jobs right next to the airport. That was a city-driven project, which, by the way, our team flew to DC to land that deal during the pandemic because we thought it was so important for our city. That is the single largest jobs announcement, other than the Intel jobs announcement, that we've seen in 40 years. And we did this because it's city land. It is a public-private partnership because we found a way to use that empty land next to the airport to support the company who wants to move there and have that access. Also, if you look downtown at things like the rail yards and the rail trail project, these are all involving private partners, whether it's the landowners like the Garcia Otto family or it's even the Yates family who's doing a project down there. We are now literally matching them dollar for dollar to connect downtown and to revitalize downtown. So I have a long record with public-private partnerships. In fact, running public-private partnerships legislation with your support back when I was a state senator. And when you put some of these efforts together, 6,000 new jobs were announced in the last 18 months. That is more than our city has seen in the last decade. That is literally going to create a new suburb in Mesa del Sol. So I think our city is on the cusp of tremendous economic growth that is going to lift us all up. And it's because of some of the very hard work and collaborative public-private partnership efforts that my administration has pushed.
Thank you. Now the hardest question. Please tell the hiring committee why you believe you are the best candidate to represent the people of Albuquerque as our mayor.
I think we've been able to talk about a number of issues today. I do want to mention also that I demonstrated during the pandemic a leader who is trying to do what's right for Albuquerque, a leader who acknowledges when we make mistakes, a leader who is not going to say there is a silver bullet for any of our problems, a leader who is dedicated to actually doing the right thing in the long term. And you saw that with our efforts during the pandemic to actually try and keep businesses open. We saved hundreds of businesses with our own city grant program that no one wrote us a plan for, that no one told us to do. We did it because it was the right thing. We gave every business in town tents because we believe it was the right thing to do. We put out $200 million in construction projects to keep families working during the pandemic. We opened up our community centers for childcare of police officers and firefighters and doctors and nurses because someone told them they had to work but others couldn't and the schools were closed. So we said we will help. So I think I have demonstrated that I am here to help our city over the long run and that I need another 4 years because to deal with the challenges of homelessness, we have to have the Gateway Center succeed. To deal with what we have to do at APD, we have to continue to get more officers, and we have to continue to implement those technology reforms, and we have to honor reforms, or it's going to bog down our department. I believe, given what I've been through, that I am the only one who is positioned to actually make good on what our city needs. And that's why we need to continue moving forward. The last thing we need right now is to actually turn backwards or to try other ideas. We've got to stay the course because we're on the cusp of something special in Albuquerque.
Thank you. The hiring committee, the Albuquerque voters, will let you know on November 2nd if you have been selected.
So true. So true. Amen.
Mr. Mayor, we would encourage you to